The news broke like a thunderclap over Mar-a-Lago, shattering the early morning calm and sending shockwaves through the corridors of power. President Trump, furious and blindsided, watched as the Supreme Court, reshaped by his own appointments, struck down his signature tariffs, a move he had once believed unassailable. The ruling wasn't just a legal defeat, it was a personal and political blow, unraveling the core of his economic agenda and undermining the foundation of his presidency. Across the country, chaos erupted, markets trembled, and ordinary Americans wondered what would come next. News channels buzzed with urgent updates, traders watched nervously as numbers tumbled, and politicians scrambled to respond to the unfolding crisis. Democrats celebrated a win for the rule of law, hailing the decision as a victory for checks and balances and a rebuke of executive overreach. Republicans were split, torn between loyalty to their leader and the constitutional principles they had sworn to uphold, their unity fracturing in real time. Trump's promise of economic revival now lay in ruins, the vision he'd sold to millions suddenly uncertain and fragile. For many Americans, the future felt more unpredictable than ever, as families and businesses braced for the fallout. His warnings of catastrophe echoed as the reality set in, his supporters rallying while critics questioned his judgment. The man known for deal-making had been stopped, not by rivals, but by the very court he'd shaped, a twist of fate that stunned even his closest allies. The fury from Mar-a-Lago was more than anger. It was the frustration of a leader told his power had limits, forced to confront the boundaries of his own making. The battle over America's economic future had just entered a new, unpredictable phase, with the nation holding its breath for what would come next. At the heart of this firestorm is a simple concept: a tariff, a tax on imported goods. When a foreign company sells products in the U.S., tariffs make those goods more expensive, often passing the cost to American consumers. The goal: make domestic products more attractive, protect local industries, and save jobs. Supporters say tariffs shield American workers. Critics argue they raise prices for everyone and spark trade wars. Tariffs can help some industries but hurt others, like construction, by raising material costs. Trade wars erupt when countries retaliate, escalating economic tensions. For Trump, tariffs were a weapon to force better deals. For opponents, they were a penalty on Americans. The debate isn't just economic, it's about how America should engage with the world. Trump's second-term vision relied on a bold promise: America first, a pledge to put the nation's interests above all else, no matter the cost or controversy. This vision was enforced by a wall of tariffs designed to protect American industries and pressure foreign competitors. To bypass a gridlocked Congress, Trump invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, declaring a series of national emergencies to justify sweeping tariffs on imports from countries like China and Mexico. Traditionally, IEEPA was a tool reserved for targeting hostile regimes, freezing assets, or imposing sanctions, not for reshaping the entire U.S. trade policy. Under Trump, tariffs soared to levels unseen since the 1930s, echoing the protectionist era of the Great Depression, as he claimed foreign nations would ultimately foot the bill. Supporters saw a president finally fighting for American workers, standing up to global competitors and promising to bring jobs back home. Critics, however, saw a dangerous power grab, warning that such sweeping use of emergency powers threatened the balance of American democracy. Legal scholars and members of Congress warned that Trump was stretching the definition of emergency to the breaking point, bypassing the Constitution's clear grant of taxing power to Congress and setting a dangerous precedent for future presidents. Businesses and states, hit hard by rising costs and economic uncertainty, challenged the move in court, arguing it threatened livelihoods and the rule of law. The stage was set for a dramatic constitutional showdown, with the nation watching closely. The fight would reach the Supreme Court, where the future of presidential power, the limits of emergency authority, and the direction of American trade policy all hung in the balance. The legal battle began almost immediately after the tariffs were announced, sending shockwaves through the business community and legal circles alike. Lawsuits were filed within days, as affected companies scrambled to protect their livelihoods and challenge what they saw as an unprecedented use of presidential power. Businesses, facing soaring costs and the threat of layoffs, quickly united to challenge Trump's authority in court. Coalitions formed across industries, with small business owners and major corporations alike, arguing that the tariffs would devastate their bottom lines and disrupt the entire economy. In a series of dramatic hearings, lower courts sided with the business coalition, ruling that the administration may have overstepped its legal bounds. This set the stage for a high-stakes Supreme Court showdown that would capture national attention. The central question wasn't about whether tariffs were good policy, but rather, who truly had the constitutional authority to impose them? Was it the president, acting alone, or did Congress have the final say? The major questions doctrine became the heart of the case, an idea that only Congress can authorize actions of vast economic and political significance, especially when the stakes are this high. Attorney Neil Katyal, representing the business coalition, argued passionately that the IEEPA was never intended to let a president single-handedly rewrite the nation's tariff code or bypass Congress on such sweeping economic decisions. The administration, however, countered forcefully, insisting that the president must have broad authority in times of emergency, especially when it comes to foreign affairs and national security. They argued that flexibility is essential to protect American interests. Now, the justices faced a momentous decision. Does the president have a blank check to act on trade? Or does Congress ultimately hold the keys to America's economic future? The outcome would have far-reaching consequences. The answer would not only decide the fate of the tariffs, but also reshape the balance of power in Washington for years to come, setting a precedent for how America's government handles its most consequential decisions. At the core, Congress's constitutional power to tax and regulate trade versus the president's emergency authority. Challengers argued IEEPA was a scalpel, not a sledgehammer, meant for targeted sanctions, not sweeping tariffs. If Congress wanted to give the president such power, it would have done so clearly. The administration insisted IEEPA's broad language allowed the president to act in national emergencies. Defining an emergency, they argued, was up to the president, not the courts. The justices faced a dilemma: respect presidential power in foreign policy, or uphold Congress's economic authority. A ruling for Trump could set a precedent for unchecked executive power. A ruling against could limit the president's tools. The stakes were nothing less than the structure of American government. During oral arguments, skepticism dominated the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Roberts reminded the administration that Congress, not the president, controls tariffs. Trump's own appointees, like Justice Gorsuch, questioned if future presidents could use emergencies to impose sweeping economic policies. Justice Barrett raised concerns about the chaos of refunding billions in tariffs. Justice Sotomayor drew parallels to the court's rejection of Biden's student debt relief, invoking the major questions doctrine. The justices, left and right, worried about limitless presidential power. The court seemed united in its anxiety over executive overreach. The stage was set for a landmark decision. The Supreme Court's ruling was decisive. Trump's tariffs, imposed under IEEPA, were unconstitutional. In a 7-2 decision, the court reaffirmed Congress's authority over trade and taxation. Chief Justice Roberts wrote that such sweeping economic changes require clear congressional approval. The court declared Congress does not hide elephants in mouse holes. The tariffs were struck down, opening the door for businesses to seek refunds and creating administrative chaos. Politically, it was a devastating blow to Trump's agenda and a clear limit on presidential power. Free trade advocates and constitutional scholars celebrated. Trump and his supporters vowed to fight on. The chapter closed, but the trade war was far from over. Even before the ruling, Trump promised a Game 2 plan. With IEEPA blocked, the White House turned to other tools, like Section 232, allowing tariffs on imports deemed national security threats. Section 301, used against China, lets the president retaliate against unfair trade practices after investigation. These options are slower, more targeted, and open to legal challenge. The administration even considered reviving Depression-era laws for new tariffs, politically risky, but legally potent. The era of sweeping, unilateral tariffs is over, but the trade war continues on new, complex legal fronts. Businesses and trading partners now face a patchwork of possible new tariffs. The uncertainty and conflict are far from resolved. The Supreme Court's decision brings legal clarity, but economic uncertainty remains. Businesses may get relief from invalidated tariffs, but Trump's vow to pursue new ones keeps them on edge. For families, some prices may fall, but new tariffs could drive them back up. Export-dependent jobs remain at risk as trade disputes continue. The fight has shifted from the Oval Office to a maze of trade laws and investigations. Global partners watch warily, unsure who will be targeted next. The core debate, protectionism versus free trade, remains unresolved. For Americans, the battle over trade policy means continued instability and an uncertain future.